right, gentlemen, let's get started. Everyone, thank you for being here at this Coatings Coffee Conversation bright and early on this Thursday morning. We so appreciate you being here. My name is Megan Ellsworth here at CoatingsCoffeeShop.com, and today I have the two experts, John Kenny and Johnny Walker, my two pals. We're going to be talking about restoration trends for 2026 and beyond, all sorts of stuff that you need to be aware of when it comes to coatings and restoration work this year. And it's brought to you by APOC. So thank you, APOC, for sponsoring this conversation and getting me together with my pals. And yes, here we go, APOC right there. Johnny, could you please introduce
Yeah.
yourself and tell us about what you do at APOC?
Yeah. So, Johnny Walker never needed a nickname. I've been in the roofing industry roughly 40 years now.
Amazing.
Actually, I think I finally hit 40 years. Started as a teenager, like a lot of folks did, just picking up shingles off the ground and went from there. I've been in just about every aspect of roofing, as I went through my career. Been with APOC now, actually going on 17 years.
Wow.
Um, you know, I'm excited to be here. Started as a district sales manager, and then now I'm the national technical manager. And all my years of experience in roofing has really helped me get here to this point. And it's been a great company to be with.
Yeah. Yeah. Yay. Well, I'm so glad you're here, Johnny. Thank you for being here
Mhm.
with us. And then John Kenny, the one and only. Can you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Cottney Consulting?
Sure, and thanks, Megan. I always appreciate the invite to be on, and today's kind of special to get a chance to be here with Johnny as well. I've
Yeah.
known Johnny for a long time and here in the Tampa, Florida market. So, for those of you who don't know me, I spent about 45 years in the roofing industry on the contracting side before moving into consulting. So, most of my career in commercial roofing was in commercial roofing operations, estimating, project management, service, and restoration work. So, one thing I can tell you, I've seen restoration evolve from something that used to be considered a niche solution into a much more strategic part of the roofing market. So,
Right.
I'm excited to be here today with everybody.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, I'm going to stop share and we're just going to talk on today's coffee
Great.
conversation. So, gentlemen, what are the biggest changes, for better or for worse, that the restoration market is facing right now? Johnny, I'll let you take this one first.
I'd speak specifically to Florida. I mean, there's changes all throughout the country, but usually what happens in Florida tends to find its way elsewhere. So, one of the things that we're facing here, when we talk about roof restoration in general, is the issue with the insurance companies here in Florida. And basically, for those folks that may not know that, what's kind of happening here is that insurance companies, you have a roof that has 15 years old, for example, but still has some good quality and, 5 to 10 years of useful life left. Insurance companies are saying, doesn't matter, tear it off. That's very costly to the building owners. And, and
Yeah.
here in Florida, we think about, these condo associations and things like that. I mean, a lot of folks are living on their retirement incomes and really can't afford to, come together and pony up that extra to have a roof torn off when it could be restored and sent, give them another 10, 15, or even potentially 20 years. So that's a huge issue and something that we've been facing, and trying to work with and deal with here in the state of Florida lately.
Yeah, it's kind of just crazy what's going on with all of that. John, what are you seeing in respects to those insurance changes as well?
So on on the insurance side, excuse me, sticking with the Florida on it is been under a lot of pressure in the insurance market for several years. Florida has. If you live in Florida and you operate in Florida, you know that. So between hurricane exposure, litigation issues and claims and activity, insurers been trying to reduce risk across the board, and roofs have become a major focus. So what I'm seeing is insurance tighten the eligibility requirements, especially around roof aging. From a contractor's perspective, that creates confusion because a roof may still be structurally sound and restorable, not even a question about that. But once it crosses a certain age or threshold, the insurance companies are looking at them differently and causing a lot of havoc within the marketplace.
Yeah. It and havoc is a really great word to describe that as, honestly. It feels very much so like havoc being created in the roofing market and starting in Florida and potentially moving outside of Florida. Um, can you kind of, Johnny, explain what prompted Florida these recent insurance shifts? I know we kind of touched on it a little bit, but let's dive a little
Yeah,
bit
I mean,
deeper.
obviously, John kind of hit on it. It's storm damage,
Right.
hurricanes, these types of things. So,
Yep.
from an insurance perspective, they would love to see every roof torn off, and meet new wind uplift codes and those types of things. And of course, brand new roofs, they're going to have that 15 to 20-year durability, and the insurance companies are going to kind of bank on that.
Yeah.
So as these roofs are aging, although they may still have useful life, they're kind of forcing it. And it's a pure profit thing. They're trying to mitigate their loss.
Yep.
The hurricane will come again. The tropical storms will come again. We lucked out last year, and the state did and didn't have anything really. But this year's a new year, and who knows? And that's really what's driving it is the dollars and cents of it. On their bottom line.
Yeah. Yeah. John, anything to add on or do you think we're going to see some of these shifts outside of Florida soon?
Yeah, I'm already seeing it. Like I said, I travel to a lot of different states and do hands-on
Yeah.
training for different groups, and always like to get that perspective when I'm out on the road from what's happening in the local marketplaces. And I would say it's well beyond just being localized anymore. We're starting to see legislations in different states kind of matching where Florida went and seeing it. But I know we kind of jumped it around with it a little bit, but dropping back a little bit to kind of what I can add to this is kind of what we're seeing in trends. Biggest thing that I'm seeing overall, besides we got to stand up and do what's right for the industry and not be challenged by insurance companies to lead the way,
Yeah.
which I'm seeing a good thing. But the flip side is the challenge for contractors is they need the knowledge and discipline to properly evaluate these roofs and design restoration systems correctly. So don't think of it, you got to get away from the mindset that you're selling it as a coating. You got to diagnose that roof system and understanding when the restoration makes sense and when it doesn't. And I think if we have that mindset, it's going to help us to move forward with what's going on with why insurance industry, because let's face it, what do they want to do? Collect premiums and not pay anything out. That's
Right.
simple. And I think we can help move our industry along by increasing the benefits of where restoration is a value.
Yeah.
Yeah, and John's got a great point there that we're and not just with Florida, but we're seeing this all throughout the country that what are we seeing in restorations in general? We're seeing longer warranty requests,
Yep.
and along with that is coming true restorations. These are partially to fully reinforced systems. They're not just a coating going on the roof, with proper inspection and evaluation, determining, all the primers that need moisture surveys being done. And that's one of the things that we're working hard with the insurance companies to get them to recognize is that when we say restoration, we're not talking about painting the roof, right? We're
Exactly.
talking about proper evaluation, proper preparation, priming, patching, reinforcements, and then we get to the actual coating, which is the reflective protective part.
Yeah.
And when all that comes together, you have something that literally can take it another 10, 15, or 20 years, depending on the product and the system that you apply.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, maybe we need to change Coatings Coffee Shop to Restoration Coffee Shop. I like pivoting away from using coatings and
yeah,
saying
one
it's a full
component of,
system.
but yeah.
Right.
Yeah, if I could, Megan, one last wrap up on the insurance because we could spend an entire 2, 3 days on this, but because it's crazy. But one thing I want everybody to understand out there, from what I'm seeing, and especially here in Florida, the insurance companies are just not going after the restoration end of it, the coatings industry. They really don't want roof overs either. Their whole goal is to force owners into tearing off
Yep.
whatever roof they have and going with a brand new installation. So it's not just, okay, I don't really affect me that much. Well, yeah, it's going to, because it's going to
Yeah.
get to the point where people are going to make a decision. Can I even afford to put a roof on anymore?
Right.
Right.
Right. Exactly. We have an interesting question here from Lily. Hi, Lily. Thanks for the question. And it kind of goes with this, so I'm going to throw it at you guys right now. Is there any difference in what you are seeing as far as restrictions in Florida across multifamily residential buildings and commercial buildings using LAR?
I'll throw that one to John first.
And I have to ask this because this is not my full, what LAR meaning what?
I also don't know what LAR means.
I want to get that
Liquid applied
clarified.
roofing.
Okay, I just want to get that clear that we were on that.
Great.
Um, so honestly, the biggest thing that I'm seeing, I think the homeowners, the residential and the multifamily have a whole nother big issue that they're dealing with, especially here in Florida, is that they don't really want shingles at all. So again, if we're getting into the shingle aspect, that's a big problem, and I'm not sure and I don't want to get too far off on this, but I'm not sure that a lot of the restoration work that's going on that you're seeing advertised on TV and such to restore shingles is actually a super positive thing overall. But that's again for another day. But I would say, as far as using a low slope restoration, yeah, especially condominiums, and all that stuff in Florida, insurance companies don't even want to talk about a second roof, much less restoration. So I am seeing it affect into the residential and multifamily market when it comes to the low slope type of roofing systems.
Okay.
Yeah, and Megan, if I may, I'd like to add to that. So one of the things that RCMA is working very diligently to do is to get a House bill through the House and the Senate in the state of Florida, that would basically say, hey, the insurance company has to allow the building owner. And when I say building owner, we do not differentiate between commercial or residential, right? So that could be the homeowner, the association, whoever owns that building, so that they can have an inspection. And part of that is to expand. It's not just the insurance company that gets to inspect it. The homeowner, the building owner would be able to allow for an independent inspector. You know, they can hire a home inspector. Their roofing, their certified licensed roofing contractor could potentially be the inspector, and that's one of the things we're trying to push through. Is that, you know, if you've got a good licensed insurance or roofer in the state of Florida, that, you know, hey, he took his test, he's got the license, you know, he knows what
Wow.
roofing, knows the quality, should be able to make that determination and stand by it. That if they could determine that the roof has an additional 5 years or more useful life, that the insurance companies won't be able to deny them insurance based on age alone. So that will be both residential and commercial. So that's kind of
Okay.
into that.
That's so exciting. That's so exciting. And say again, when is the session that you all are trying to get that passed on?
Well, it should be the next session. I don't know the exact date on
Okay.
that. We're trying to get it. You know, it was kind of tabled, and I won't say tabled during the session. It was tabled by the sponsors for some clarification on some language.
Yep.
That clarification has been given, and we're very hopeful that that will make it to the floor at the very next opportunity.
That's exciting.
Yeah, in Florida, just usually November is when they have a short session to get things in line for the long session, but it's usually after January through May when they got to do the budgets when all the actual House rules and the Senate bills come out. So
Got
I'm
it.
with Johnny. Hopefully we see this done. But everyone understand out there, it is not going to be a short battle. This is
Right.
going to be a 5 to 10 year battle national wide until it gets straightened out.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. So many coding systems meet Florida building code and Dade County standards. Why do you think there is a disconnect between building code compliance and this insurance eligibility? I know we've touched on it a little bit, but let's dive into they're meeting the code. Why is the insurance not meeting? Why is it not meeting insurance eligibility?
Yeah, so from my perspective, it's simply that, you know, they see it as a coating. You
Okay.
know, they see it as it we're painting the roof, right? And I'm with them. I mean, that doesn't sound like a new roof to me. Doesn't sound like it's, you
Yeah.
know, I mean, is it reflective and protective and prolong the life? Yes. But, you know, and John said it right off the bat, and we say this all the time. We train that, you know, if you want to paint the roof, that's great. You can reduce the heat, reduce the cost, slow the expansion, you know, the heat load. But you're not really addressing your detail work, your seams and your penetrations, and these are where the roofs leak, right? And so where a full restoration addresses everything there, and it's getting them, educating them on what we're actually doing and what our warranties cover, and that they are a true warranted system that's very industry standard, and really in the education of those insurance providers. And we're working hard to do that, and that's part of what our CMA is also working on.
Yeah, and just to add really quick too, roofing day is right around the corner, and so having people from RCMA that do restoration work, contractors from Florida, going to roofing day in April would be that's huge. Getting that knowledge in front of the lawmakers is so important, so they know we're not just painting the roof, right? John, anything to add on this before I move on to the next one?
Yeah, I think so. I think this is a really important distinction here to bring up. So, building codes focus on safety and performance standards for all construction systems, right?
Right.
Insurance companies strictly focus on risk exposure and claims history. They don't really care what building codes have to say
Got it.
unless they can use them a way out. So,
Yeah.
restoration systems absolutely can meet building code testing standards and still not align with how the insurance carrier decides to evaluate risk. That's important. Decides, okay, because it's not always necessarily a reason behind anything. So from the contractor side, that's where expectations have to be managed with the
Yeah.
building owner. So I think it's really important to understand that because it's the insurance carrier that's driving it based on what they consider their risk and exposure models, not whether it meets the code or not.
Yeah. Yeah, and that kind of takes us right into the next topic of how can contractors educate their building owners, multifamily property managers about these insurance policy changes. How should they be kind of meeting this education wise?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, education is key in everything. We conduct trainings once a month for our contractors. Our teams go out and meet with building owners on a regular basis with contractors. But getting involved in seeking out places like RCMA, seeking out IBEC, and the local associations, FRSA, and those types of things. There's tons and tons of good information there, and quality contractors and consultants that like John himself there, that are a part of those groups and can help them out.
Yeah, yeah. John, how can contractors educate on this topic and help their building owners from absolute tear offs?
Sure. So one of the things I always like when we go through our different trainings and that, you got to step into an advisory role, okay? You got to understand you got an owner and what they understand. So building owners are hearing all kinds of different things, right? Look at what they're hearing from insurers, agents, contractors, consultants, and they get confused very quickly. So the best contractors that I see out there doing this are the ones who slow the conversation down and focus on documentation, not get in a defensive mode, but understand what the owner is actually hearing and then take it from there and move it into that advisory role. So show the condition of the roof, explain options clearly, right? Discuss how restoration compares to replacements. You got to lay it all out there. Why would I do the restoration rather than replace? That's what you got to do is educate them, be in that advisor role. So I think when contractors position themselves as problem solvers instead of just salespeople, that's the key. I think the conversation changes and puts them in a lot better aspect of the end of where we're going with this.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to pivot our conversation here. How would you, Johnny, say the industry adaptation of AI is affecting restoration work in positive, negative, neutral? How is AI kind of shifting restoration work?
So, I mean, AI is phenomenal, and there's some great AI tools out there. We've even in my role in the technical role, have started using AI.
Oh,
Um, you know, roof surveys, evaluations, all these types of things, and it's only going to get better. I mean, if you're a contractor out there and you're not embracing it, you're going to be falling behind. And when
yeah.
I say falling behind, you will fall behind rapidly. Just in the last, you know. year we've seen so many new versions of AI come out, and the new one 10 times better than the previous one, and they're just advancing incredible. So, they really need to embrace it. Whether it's through drone surveys, through documentation, writing reports. I mean, it's just unreal. I mean, there's things that we do when we're evaluating a claim, and we'll take all the data and put it into the AI, and the amount of information that it can kick back to you in seconds, would take us, John and I being old school guys, we'd spend hours or days searching for the information we were looking for. And now we can pull it up quickly. You have to ask the right questions, but yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah. John, how are you seeing AI kind of changing the face of restoration work?
Sure. So first of all, from the contracting side, seeing AI and technology are starting to influence estimating, inspections, and service operations as well. So we're seeing a lot better tools, as John said, for analyzing roofs, and all those things are coming to rest to play in here. But for restoration specifically, that can help contractors identify candidate roofs earlier and provide more accurate proposals. So as John said, the biggest thing to this is getting the right information in there. So if I'm using AI, I want to build up a database of what roofs are candidates for restorations and what roofs aren't and why and the areas I'm working in. The more that you give the right parameters to any AI program you're working with, the better you're going to get out of it. And that's a key. You never want to do, like, for example, put a question in there. Hey, can I put a coating system over this roof? Well, that's leaving, who knows what your answer is going to be. But if you've got some data that it gets to look at, and for your company, for how you want to do things, then you're going to get some good answers out of that. So again, biggest key that I like to tell everybody is technology, and AI especially doesn't replace your judgment. You still have to have that ability, and you still need experienced professionals who understand roofs. AI doesn't walk roofs, it doesn't understand what we
Right.
do. It will give you information, but you have to put the right stuff in.
Yeah.
And I will kind of follow up one more thing is that, just recently, I was asked to talk to a MIT student. And what they're literally doing is finding ways to help the roofing industry and the
Wow.
roofing trade. The particular student, had a family member that came from the roofing trade and wanted to. So, we had conversations about it. What do we use it for? And inspections and all these different types of things. But then on the manufacturing side, so it's going to become an absolute necessity to embrace it, as I say, in the short term until the murder robots come, and then, that's that.
Exactly. Yeah, like iRobot.
Right.
Well, it was really interesting. I was at ServiceCon earlier this week, and one thing that came up about AI was right to your point, John, predictive maintenance rather than preventative. It's going from
Hmm.
preventative maintenance to predictive. Um, and I just think that's fascinating. So, something to keep an eye out. And there's lots of AI companies. I mean, if you all were, everyone here was probably at IRE, so many AI companies on the trade show floor this year,
Hmm.
more than ever. And there's so many options. So, this is definitely, these are two great people to ask questions. Is this a good software? Is this what I need? And we can get you in touch with John and Johnny. Are there, Johnny, are there any current larger market trends that are influencing the demand for restoration services? We talked about financial costs being in a down market, obviously sustainability. What are some of those larger market trends that you're seeing?
Yeah, I mean, market volatility is huge.
Yeah,
We see that repair and restoration in general. When the markets are great, the money tends to flow a little easier out of pockets.
yeah,
So those roofs that may need to be replaced at some point, they'll might take that opportunity to do it. So when you're in a down economy or down market, absolutely, restoration is a way. But to get it there at about one third the cost, right? But the other thing that I think is really pushing it is the technology of it. the reflectance and the durability. We went from coatings, restorations, lasting 5 to 10 years to now we're seeing them last 10 to 15 to 20 years. And I'm starting to see some 25 years, and of course, silicone having a 50
Right.
plus year durability. I don't think anybody's out there offering any labor and material warranties on that. God, I hope not. But, but 20-year durability, yeah, if it's properly installed, it's there. So, and that was a technology we didn't necessarily have before. So you're combining the ability of the systems, so the quality of the material, the structure and the build of the system itself, how we're doing things, the reinforcements we're using, and what we're doing. Now, all of that's gotten far better over the years, over the decades. And that, along with the down economy, it's really going to push those things strong. And when you can, the other side of that is green and environmental.
Yeah.
Filling up dumpsters. We
Yeah.
drive and we see it all the time. Just big mounds of trash piled. Where they're, the landfills. Well, we're trying to be environmentally friendly, be green, and to limit that, right? So this is one way to, hey, if we can prevent that for another 20 years, well, then that's just one less cycle going into the landfill.
Yeah.
So a restoration can be a very, very green or environmentally friendly thing to do as well. And we're seeing some markets that are pushing that. Some of the larger cities are pushing that. The cool roof initiatives and the green initiatives. So.
Yeah. John, what are you seeing larger market trend wise for restoration?
Well, definitely one of the biggest drivers is cost pressure. And I always look at roofing's kind of an interesting industry if you look at the very big picture. There's downturns, there's upturns, but there's always cost pressure in our industry, regardless of what the economy is.
Yeah.
No one wants to spend money on a roof. That's one thing you ought to always understand. It's that, the thing we have to do. And people, it's like going to the dentist. No one wants to do it. So I think building owners now are facing higher interest rates, higher construction costs, material costs in construction, when you look at it over the last year, has increased between 8 and 15%. It depends on which organization you look at that has done the study, and definitely tighter budgets, right? And again, I always say, understand that when you look at any facility manager, the last thing you really want to spend money on is in the roof until it's to the point where they can't have it disrupt their operations anymore. So they're going to look for ways to extend assets rather than replace them. This is where restoration fits right into that environment, in my opinion. So another trend that I see with facility management, they are starting to understand and become more proactive. So if you actually follow any of the facility management organizations and groups, their education, they've been doing it for a while, but it's really moving to, hey, the last thing you want to do is get this roof tore off and replaced. You want to keep making it last and last. They're starting to gain that for reasons, as Johnny just said, green costs, the dumps, all the things that go into it. So I think owners are really starting to realize that maintaining and restoring roofs are going to significantly extend life cycle costs. And
Yeah.
that's the key as a contractor. You've got to learn how to sell that. You got to
Yeah.
learn how to present that. So those are the trends that I'm seeing out there right now.
Yeah, I like what you're saying too. It's coming from the building owners, the facility managers. It's not just, the contractors going out there and trying to sell restoration work. It's coming to them in a sense that people want restoration. They don't want full tear offs anymore. And it's interesting to talk about sustainability as sustainability just purely on its own still a selling point for restorations versus tear offs, or are you seeing it's just kind of an added benefit to like a lower cost? And Johnny, I'm gonna have you hit this one first.
Okay.
The sustainability, is it just an added benefit right now, or is it still kind of, or are people doing or restoration work just because it's cheaper potentially?
No, I mean, sustainability is definitely becoming a key.
Yeah.
Yeah, cheaper. That's great, right? If you can save money now, but the cost of a roof today, if you tore a roof off today, let's say it's $100,000. Well, in 10, 15, 20 years, what's that actual cost going to be? How
Yeah.
much more is that going to cost? We're not seeing the cost of re-roof going down. We're only seeing it going up. The cost of materials going up, the cost of everything's going up. So sustainability is going to be key. Keeping that roof on there as long as possible. One of the things I used to see was the old coal tar pitch systems. I mean, I'm sure John's done it too. I've walked a 50-year coal tar pitch roof, and that was a roof system that did very well long term. And we went to some less expensive, a little more, environmentally friendly stuff outside of coal tar, but they don't last as long. So if you can take that SBS APP roof and prolong the life of it, that single ply roof, prolong the life of it, get an additional 15, 20 or plus years, because a lot of these systems, these restoration systems, and they are true systems, are renewable. If they're done right and properly maintained. Of course, that's the key. Every roof needs to be properly maintained, and a restoration system's no different. So if it's done right and it's properly maintained, you can push these things, and you can, if you have a 10-year warranty, you can make repairs and recoat and get another 10-year, that's exciting to me, because if this new rule goes through, you could be looking at, hey, they put the roof on, they have it re-inspected. Yep, it still has 10 years. It still has 10 years. It still has 10 years. Everything will age out at some point, but our goal is to keep it on that roof as long as possible, and keep that cost down to the building owner as long as
Yeah.
possible.
John, are you seeing sustainability as the main selling point, or is it still an added benefit right now?
No, it's definitely part of the conversation, but it's usually not the first driver of the
Yeah.
conversation. I think cost and life cycle value tend to come first. But I also believe that once owners understand that restoration can reduce landfill waste, right? Say all the items that Johnny just went over, I think sustainability becomes an additional benefit. That's the key, looking at it as a benefit. It's hard to lead with that anymore. So I think it's more reinforcing factor rather than the primary reason owners will choose restoration.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
agree.
Absolutely. Okay, so we have some questions from the audience here. Um, there it is. How are building owners reacting when they hear their roof may not qualify for insurance coverage? Are you talking to contractors um, who have experienced this, and what are you hearing on this? And John Kenny, I'll hit you first on this one.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I think that the initial shock and awe is over. I think a lot of building owners now, this has been going on, it's like in Florida, this is not just this year. This has been a
Right.
conversation over the last 2 or 3 years. So I
Mhm.
think they're working around it. And one of the big key points is from a contractor standpoint to help the owner out is where the insurance companies are kind of off base on this a little bit, but they're not totally incorrect, is that when you look at your building codes, so one thing, all national building codes are pretty much based off the same. The only thing that happens in Florida is we take it to the more local level and add in different amendments for the area, for the hurricanes and so on. But the baselines are all pretty much the same. The big key is any roof that's being roofed over by the newer codes that are out there requires it to meet, then the new roof that you're covering over, which would be the same if you're doing a restoration, you're covering over it,
Yep.
must meet the wind up requirements of the current code in effect. So they were using that. But honestly, all you got to do is test that existing roof. There's nothing to say that it wouldn't meet it. And there are some options, fastening boards over it. You can still do a restoration system, right? Which is different than just putting coating, as John said about 1,000 times here for sure, Johnny.
Yeah.
Brought it up. There's a big difference. We're not just painting the roof. So I think you need to be educated and understand your code where you're at and understand how to present this between the owner and for them to go to their insurance company and put a case up for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and then Johnny, we have a question here. What role do manufacturers and consultants need to play in helping validate restoration systems to politicians, insurance companies, etc.?
Yeah, so I mean, the role is educate, educate, educate.
Right.
You know what I mean? We really have to stay on top of all of them, and educate them on what we're actually doing. That we are adding value to the roof. Are we going to add additional uplift? No, we're not, right? And if the roof is shot, we can't fix that. But if the roof, and this is the key, is educating them on proper inspection, determining the actual useful life left in the building. in the roof system itself. And then educating them on how we can prolong that and what we're doing to prolong it and and all the things that we do to get there. We spend, hours on roofs walking them and evaluating them and taking pictures and, every single detail on that roof gets looked at and to determine, hey, can this actually be restored? If it can't be restored, we don't want to restore it. We want to walk away from it. We don't want to give the industry a bad name. But educating them on that and, you know, just staying in front of our, our politicians. And, there's a lot of lobbyists on their side that, as John said, there's no reason for them to not want to tear the roof off, right? They don't
Yeah.
have to pay for it, and they're going to keep trying to force that. So, we just need to keep in front of our politicians and encouraging them to stand on the side of their constituents and support them and, you know, try to save them some money.
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about Florida. Are you seeing any other, and John Kenny, I'll point this to you. Are you seeing any other regional trends emerging in the restoration market across the US? I know like fire is a big deal, obviously, um, hail. What are some other like, regional trends you're seeing for restoration work?
Yeah, well, I think the insurance industry on a whole has expanded out their reach to almost every marketplace,
Yeah.
every regional marketplace in the US, right? And they're not going away. So if you're not facing anything similar to what we've been going over here today, one thing you will. There's just no doubt about it. And unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at this, it comes down to money. And they're extremely large amounts of money behind the lobbying of insurances to push the trends their way. And it takes, like John was saying, that the Coating Manufacturers Association and other roofing organizations and manufacturers fighting back, but it's a battle. So don't think it's not going to happen. There is, I will tell you, Texas, Kansas, Missouri, Colorado, all these areas that get hit in the hail belt, how you want a tornado belt. There's all things already in legislation now. They just haven't made it out to the floor. But that
Yeah.
doesn't mean they're dead. They just haven't made it out yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Johnny, anything to add on that one? Regional
Yeah.
trend?
So, I mean, we're definitely see it's coming. It doesn't have to be hurricanes. As John said, hail is another one. We're actually seeing, in the restoration trend, some manufacturers going after additional hail resistance ratings, that type of thing,
Yeah.
for systems. And again, it's our job to fight against the insurance company to prove to them that it provides, right?
Yeah.
We can pass the codes, but that doesn't mean they have to accept it, the insurance
Right.
company. So, in those markets as well, we have to fight with them. We have to make sure that we're educating those lawmakers and getting them to fight on the side of their constituents, because that's really who it's about, right? They're the ones who are having to fork out the money. So, but it has to be legit, and that's the thing. We do provide a lot of great things with restorations, and it's educating them on what that is and getting those lawmakers to understand and stand behind it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, so a question here. Besides AI, because, and I totally get this, AI is kind of a buzzword right now. What are some technologies emerging that could change the restoration market in the next few years, if any?
Hmm, that's a good question. We walk the trade show, and I'm always looking for the next big thing. There's some chemistries out there that but they're not necessarily new. There's PMMA, there's urethane, there's silicone, there's acrylics, single component, two component, all these different types of things. The quality of those products are getting better. They're being tested to higher standards. The specifications are getting better. We're starting to see a lot fewer of the fly-by-night companies that are just coming in and painting roofs and calling it a miracle in a bucket,
Yeah.
because it just doesn't exist, right? So, um, you know, in the coding world, I don't know. I'm always looking for that next thing, and that's as a manufacturer, that's what we're always looking for, right? is where we can be really innovative and change the next thing. We're starting to see maybe some single component acrylics come out, one coat acrylics, high solids, ponding water resistance, and that's an exciting technology that I'm starting to see out there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. John, any technologies outside of AI that contractors should be aware of?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest growing trends that is right on the doorstep is robotics.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I think you need to be prepared for it. I think it's not just going to be like a better coding machine, but you're going to see that, right? Spray code, everything's going to be it's going to be a combination of AI software and robotics. Not to go too far off, I did put a nice series of articles together that's running on all the roofers coffee shop on how
Yes.
contractors operationally get prepared for robotics because
Mhm.
I hear a lot, well, that's like 10, 15 years off. No, it's not. Why I'm saying it's not is because I'm going to give you a great example. The Hyundai plant in Georgia has already moved away from hiring a human workforce over the next 5 years. They've paired up with Boston Scientific up and making robots, and they're 2 years away from fully automating the plant. Now, it's not like it's coming, it's here. So when that happens there, roofing's not going to be first, which you'll learn about going through the series, but you got to be prepared for it. It's coming. And I think
Mhm.
John brought some great points that I see too. I think you're going to see some more technologies develop in system lengths and chemical components and all those things too. But I think from a contractor standpoint, besides worrying about AI, I think you need to be prepared for robotics in the industry.
You're scaring me, John. Murder robots are coming if you keep talking.
I know. Well, 2 years ago with RT3, they went to visit Renovate Robotics in Brooklyn, New York. And we got to see a robot put down shingles on a roof. And it
Hmm.
was like, looked like a spider. It wasn't like humanoid, it was a spider and it was kind of like,
Yeah.
um, and that's really interesting. That is really, and that was 2 years ago, and it was putting down shingles. So I wonder what they're doing now. So everyone, I believe they have a directory on Roofers Coffee Shop. So go check out Renovate Robotics. It's some interesting stuff they're working on. Um, we have another comment here from Lily. I've heard there are robots that can make sure that the coating is the perfect amount of product across the whole roof, providing consistency that humans can't always provide. Works for roofing spray foam too.
Hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I mean, there's you've got the roof rabbit out there, which isn't technically a robot, but it's a piece of technology, a piece of equipment that helps apply product to the roof more evenly at a
Yeah.
faster pace. There are, working on robots to apply coatings, as John said, and shingles and everything else, right? Take the human aspect out of it. Faster, quicker, and more efficiently, or cost effectively.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, absolutely. That technology is coming. Whether if I'll see that where the robot's up on the roof completely in my lifetime, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I actually believe that we probably will.
Yeah.
Especially when the other trend that we're seeing is obviously there's a shortage in roofers.
Yep. Right.
So as we continue to see a shortage in the workforce, a shortage in the trades force in general, you're going to see AI and robotic technology is going to really come in.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so to kind of round out our conversation here, if anyone has questions, please let us know. Put them in the chat, put them in the Q&A box. Um, Looking ahead the next 5 years, what do you expect restoration to become? Or sorry, do you expect restoration to become a larger share of the overall roofing market? And John Kenny, you first.
So yes, I do, and but I want to I always like to put the old asterisks on that, and I
Yeah.
think we have to get better at selling it and educating and doing it. And this is one big thing. I know a question came up earlier about consultants and educate. What can we do more? I like to always keep things real simple when I work with contractors, and I've always looked at it this way when I was a contractor. Every roof system has its place, but not every roof system is meant for every place. All right. So I don't know if I think I'm originally to coin that a long time ago, but if you've heard it, it's
Oh,
probably been for me. But what I really mean by that is I think the biggest thing that hurt our industry throughout any cycle of anything is like when EPDMs first came out, this is the only roof you need, and torch applied the only roof. I think when we
Mm.
look at restorations from the return on investment and use it in the areas that it's best suited for, I think the market share is going to blow up in those areas. I just hopefully we need to get away. I'm talking about as an industry, not I know Johnny and APOC and other manufacturers out there, they do educate because they don't want to be tied into that bad side of the market. But I think the designers and the contractors need to keep that in mind. Everything's not meant for everything. So when we get into educating that way, I think the market's there's a great movement to expand the market widely.
I love that.
Yeah.
I
And
love that.
if I may to
Yeah.
tag on that, we use the word diversify your business, right? And by that is if you're a roofer that does shingles, well, you can learn restorations. If you're a roofer that does single ply, well, you can learn restoration. If you're a roofer that only wants to tear things off, but now you're in a down economy and you want to do restoration repair, great. But as John said, it's an arrow in the quiver. They need to have them all. They need to have them all and understand what
Yeah.
their advantages and disadvantages are, for that particular building and or homeowner. When we design a restoration, we don't just say, hey, here's a system, go put it on every roof. We look at every roof individually and the use of that building, right? What's in it? How's that going to affect the restoration? Is there chemicals? What's in the building? Do we need to do more work on the roof to really ensure long-term water tightness because of what's in the building? All of those things we take into account, and we can give that roofer through proper education that knowledge and training to evaluate that. And of course, we are absolutely going to work with them. We partner and walk roofs, and we don't just expect them. Hey, thanks for coming to the training. Good luck.
Yep. Yeah. No, and it's finding manufacturers like APOC that are your partner in your business essentially. They're another silent partner that's helping you learn and grow and do what you need to be doing. And it's really interesting. I have service on the brain. Like adding a service and maintenance program is so important to the longevity of a company, and restoration is that. So
Hmm.
this has been so fabulous, you two. Thank you so much for your wisdom. If anyone wants to get in touch with Johnny or John, you can find their directories on rooferscoffeeshop.com and coatingscoffeeshop.com, and we can get you in touch with them. Any last words on what people should be kind of looking at for this year in terms of restoration?
John.
You hit a good point there, Megan, as far as service and maintenance goes. Biggest thing I can tell you is don't wait too late to get onto the party. Okay. Well, what do I
Yeah.
mean by that? Worst thing a contractor can do is react to an issue or, oh my God, my re-roofs are drying up. Look, new construction has always been cyclable, really bad. So contractors that depend heavily on new construction, they're the first to take the hit when the economy starts to dwindle. Regardless of how you feel about the economy, the administrations that are in and out, different points, none of that matters. The point is, economies go up and down regardless. And we've been on a pretty good ride upwards as far as roofing goes since we came out of the pandemic.
Right.
So get yourself set now. I would definitely think everyone should have a structured service maintenance department, and coding fits so well in
Yep.
to that overall strategy. But it needs to be a strategy, and you need to build it upon a strategy, not just throw it out there and say, well, tomorrow I'm going to go start putting coding down. Oh my God, don't do that. Put it as part of your strategy and grow your business accordingly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Yes, and when we educate, we talk about proper maintenance, and like a lot of manufacturers out there, coating, restoration manufacturers, it's required. It's part of their system. It must be maintained.
Absolutely.
And the quality roofers out there are offering maintenance programs. They're doing restorations, and you get a 10-year warranty. They're not just walking away. They're there twice a year. They're evaluating that roof. They're looking for damage. They're making sure that the drains and they're all clean. And doing minor touch up. Minor things can be fixed at low cost. And all of that is extremely important. And to John's point, you have to have that plan. And we encourage everybody to get those maintenance programs together, educate yourself now, diversify now. one of the bigger roofers here in Florida, it's they have what I call a tear off season and a restoration season, and they know when they're going to do both, and
Interesting.
it's cyclical for them, but they plan for it,
Yeah.
and that's great.
That's really interesting, and something that definitely could be manageable for all sorts of companies, right? And something that can just is, to John's point as well, another tool in your belt.
Hmm.
Planning for seasonality is something that roofing's been used to forever. So adding restoration, adding service and maintenance to that tool belt is so important. So thank you both so much for sharing your wisdom with me today. And I'd really like to thank APOC for sponsoring today's coffee conversation here on CoatingsCoffeeShop.com. So thank you, APOC. We love you. Um, we have some really exciting coffee conversations coming up. Next week, on next Thursday, we're going to be talking about company culture, strong teams, how to have the best onboarding training that you can to have strong starts for new hires. And that's going to be sponsored by Tremco WTI, and we have the one and only Mandy McIntyre chatting with us, and that's going to be a really great one. So tune into that next Thursday. And then next week we're going to be at IBEC, with a show in Sacramento with all the roofing consultants, and that's brought to you by Western Colloid. So we're doing lots of conversations and interviews live from IBEC as well. So we'll see you there. And thank you again, gentlemen. This has been fabulous. Yay!
Thank you.
Megan, thank you so much. Awesome as always.
Absolutely. Yay! Thank you everyone for tuning in. This will be up on coatingscoffeeshop.com in 24 to 48 hours, and we'll see you next week on the next coffee conversation, and hopefully at IBEC. See some of you at IBEC. So thanks everyone,
See you
and
next
see you
week.
on the next one.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.